Have you seen that dramatic ad run by a gun control group? They set up a fake gun store, paid an actor to pretend to be a gun dealer. When potential customers came in, the cameras rolled, and here's how the actor described his guns.
This is a 9mm semi-automatic. It's a very handy gun. It's easy to use. Carry it in a purse like that gal from the Walmart. 2-year-old son reaches into her pocketbook, pulls it out, shoots her. Dead, gone, no mom. Collectors love this one. Adam Lanza's mom had this in her collection too. Till he took this and several other guns and killed her, then went down to Sandy Hook, killed 6 teachers and 20 innocent children.
The text in that ad then says 60% of Americans think owning a gun will make them safer. In fact, it increases the risk of homicide and suicide and unintentional death. But John Lott, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, says that's a lie. It's hard to believe that's a lie. It's just logical that if you have a gun in the home, that all three of those things, homicide, suicide, accidental death, is more likely to happen because the gun's there.
Right. Well, I mean, surely guns can be used for bad things, and they are, but they can also be used to protect people and prevent bad things from happening. The presence of a gun in the home saves a lot more lives than it costs. You know, just a simple number to look at. Every place in the world that's tried to ban guns, when they've banned guns, has seen big increases in murder rates. You'd think at least one time, someplace when they banned guns, murder rates would go down, but that hasn't been the case.
Okay, more guns, less crime because people can defend themselves. But how about suicide and accidents?
Basically what we find is that people commit suicide in other ways if they don't have guns present.
Accidental deaths?
Well, accidental deaths are pretty small. And
how small?
Well, you're talking about 500 a year in the United States when you consider the fact that there's about 120 million Americans that own guns. You know, it'd be nice if it was zero, but it's, you know, I'm sure if you could get rid of all guns, there wouldn't be any accidental gun deaths.
Let's move on to something else John calls a lie about crime. It's the hands up, don't shoot movement. After Michael Brown was killed by a police officer in Ferguson, there were lots of protests where people marched down the streets shouting, hands up, don't shoot. And it was a powerful message. It stemmed from reports that Michael Brown had his hands up when he was shot.
There's plenty of reason to believe that Michael Brown had his hands up at some point.
This is a lie?
If the officer had shot somebody whose arms were up and they had some evidence for it, you'd think that they would have charged the police officer there. But if you look at the forensic evidence, it's clear that Michael Brown attacked the officer inside the officer's patrol car. And there's plenty of witnesses who saw Michael Brown charging the police officer before he fired.
At least one witness said he had his hands up.
Right. Well, the person who started saying that was the guy who had been committing crimes earlier in the day with Michael Brown. And there's a few other statements that he made to the police that were obviously false, too.
And yet this myth became the basis for all these demonstrations, plus the fact that some cops were abusing minorities.
We have a lot of these stories occur and nobody goes back and really corrects the record. It's kind of like, forget what we said before, we're going to move on to some other problem now. And I worry that it creates a real distance, even more than there should be, between police officers and blacks.
Another lie. FBI confirms a sharp rise in mass shootings since 2000. Well, it's not a lie. Since 2000, it's up sharply.
The media just generally, every couple of years, they want to say shootings are up because people buy newspapers or they'll get more scared about it. That's simply not true. If you look over the last 40 years, for example, it's been basically flat.
We have a chart of that. It's up slightly.
But it's not statistically significantly different.
And the New York Times, they picked the year 2000, which was an aberrant low year. So
right.
Of course it's up.
Anybody who looks at the data knows that 2000 is unusual. Violent crime across the board has plummeted, even in just the last 7 years. But since 1991, the murder rate was about 9.8 per 100,000, and last year our preliminary estimates are it's down to about 4.2.
All right, so the left lies to try to get gun control, but the right lies about a lot of crime and terrorism issues. They make terrorism seem like it's more likely to kill you than it is. You're more likely to die driving or swimming than you are to be killed by a terrorist.
Right. Well, I guess the question here is what might have happened if they hadn't gone and done certain things to stop terrorist-type activity. You don't know. One thing is coming, the unknown number of cases that you might have had. Terrorist types attacks are relatively rare types of events.
Thank you, John Lott. Coming up, the politician who gets away with telling lies.
I remember landing under sniper fire. There was supposed to be some kind of a greeting ceremony at the airport, but instead we just ran with our heads down to get into the vehicles.